Alright, y'all asked for it, you guys get it. You wanted more cowmaro videos, you wanted to bring the cowmaro back, so that's what I've been doing all week. We've kind of been working on it, checking it over. The main issue that I was worried about was the fuel system. I think, as you guys saw in yesterday's video, fuel system issue, I'd say is quite present. I got a lot of messages, like a bunch of emails and DMs trying to explain why all of a sudden it's having these fuel system issues, and it is honestly just because of age and the fuel. So E85 is a pretty corrosive fuel, very similar to alcohol. Alcohol is way more corrosive, it's just very harsh on a fuel system. So let's climb up here, we'll talk. I'll try to explain it to you to the best of my knowledge. Oh god, the air compressor out there is just hammering right now. So, no HOLLEY, we're running HOLLEY EFI fuel rails here, but we don't have a HOLLEY EFI system running the ECU on the car. We're running factory computer. So that awesome correction factor that you guys always hear me talk about, that HOLLEY has, this car does not. So, for instance, I'm just going to give you a scenario. If this car was on HOLLEY, fuel pumps in the back, it's in the tank, the triple hat system, they're sitting in ethanol all the time, they can get gunked up, fuel pressure starts to drop, right? As more fuel is being consumed, fuel pressure is dropping. HOLLEY would recognize it, would up the injector duty cycle to keep the same amount of fuel. So duty cycle is based off of fuel pressure. So if you're on 100% duty cycle and then you start dropping fuel pressure, the injector is still on 100% duty cycle, but it's flowing way less fuel because there's less pressure behind it. So HOLLEY, and why HOLLEY is so good, is it can correct so fast. It notices that, let's say we're running on 70% duty cycle, it notices the fuel pressure drop, so it's going to up the duty cycle on the injectors to put more fuel in the cylinder to keep the air fuel the same. And it can do that all by running off the O2. It sees it going lean, it'll add more fuel. But there's a number of reasons why it could be doing that. But for this instance, it's doing that because of the fuel system. So on the factory computer, it would just go lean. That pop, obviously. After doing some more research and some data, it's a true 3-bar map sensor, so we're fine with that. And it seems to be that we're just having to add a lot of fuel. So the car obviously ran good for like 2 years on this tune-up. I mean, I literally didn't touch the fuel tables on it for 2 years. I mean, it's on the same tune. Ryan tuned it, everything was good. But it started having these lean symptoms more and more. So the only way that we could check it, I didn't have a wideband. Now I got a wideband bung. I didn't have one before, so now I can run a wideband. So you'd be able to log air fuel ratio in the HOLLEY now. Before I didn't, so we were just kind of flying blind. And to me, out of sight, out of mind, probably not the best idea. So what we got now is we have an issue where it's going lean. We can recognize it on the dyno, which is why we put it on the dyno, because we wanted to get air fuels. And we saw that it was lean. So we up the fuel, so we're increasing injector duty cycle. Having low fuel pressure will make your injectors run out quicker because you're going to use more of the injector because it doesn't have that fuel behind it. So that's kind of where we were. We kept going up until the point where we ran out of injector. Obviously, we don't have a log on fuel pressure. I'm going to have to add fuel pressure into HP tuners to log with that because it's very important to have. I've just been negligent at this point. So this is kind of the issue that we're having, is we know we've made more power on these injectors than 1,000 horsepower. We're limited right now with our fuel system to 1,000 horsepower. So the only reason is there's something going on in the tank, in the lines, in the injectors. So I'm probably like the worst about this because it's in the car and I'm like, oh, well, I can't see if they're clogged up. I can't see if they're gunked up, so I'm sure they're fine. Well, they're really not. I've had this 4 system for about 6 years. 3 years ago, I sent these pumps into 4. They tested them. They said, man, these pumps are all pretty smoked. They're pretty wore out. Let's put 3 new 450s in there. So I said, all right, let's put 3 new 450s in there. Put the 450s in there. Car ran great. Previously, I burned up a set of heads because of it. It was doing a similar thing, but it was similar and different at the same time. It was just lean. I mean, it was just a lean characteristic that ended up just, it didn't even melt the tips of the plugs off. It just It just started to mess up the head a little bit, messed up a couple threads in the head. Could have been fixed. Sent the heads to Palmetto Auto Pros to get fixed, and they never gave me my heads back. So RIP to those LS3 heads, they are gone. It was good while we had you. So I went over to a set of LSA heads, and they work great. I'm trying to avoid burning up anything with the engine. So fuel system wise, this is what we're going to do. All of the non-PTFE lines, so PTFE lines specifically on this car are a braided line that's got like a plastic liner in it. It's set up for these more corrosive fuels like E85, like alcohol, and all this other stuff. The PTFE lines we're going to have to look at and inspect and see how they're holding up. Obviously they've been on the car for a while. They've had fuel sitting in them for a while. They have this corrosive fuel going through them for quite some time. So it's something we're really gonna have to look at and inspect. If they need to be replaced, we're gonna have to replace the fuel lines. All the non-PTFE lines on this car we're going to have to replace. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast. It's how it is. I mean, it's just, you don't realize how old this is. I mean, Wes, do you realize how old this is? This car, this build?
Pretty old.
It's quite old. I mean, it's definitely not a young build. And honestly, I think one of the reasons why I haven't been working on this car and driving this car is because I knew this was coming. And to me, it's just like, I mean, you guys know, for me, it's a little bit different because I have so many projects, but for a car that's complete, like, the goal is obviously to, like, not keep putting money in it. I've been upgrading all the weak points as we've been going, and there are fewer and fewer, but then having to go back. I mean, this is just, it's been a long time coming. You guys have forced me to step up to the plate and do it the right way. So our strategy is, we're going to check all the lines, make sure all the lines are good, and the ones that are bad need to be replaced. We're going to replace them. We're going to send the filter back to 4. We're going to send all the pumps back to 4. They're going to test them. So hopefully when they test them, they can say, hey, you know, 2 of these are smoked. One of those is not the best. This is probably where your fuel system issue, this is where your fuel pressure drop's coming from. Let's put all new pumps in there, be good to go. Put all new pumps in there, put it back in the badass billet sending unit they had, stick it back in the tank. Put a new filter on it. So we'll have all new pumps, filters, and lines. And then we'll run up here, we're going to send the injectors back. I don't know, who cleans injectors? Like the billet atomizer stuff, I always send back to billet atomizer, but these aren't, here's some ID 1700Xs is what they are. So I think like, there's fuel injector clinic, they clean them. So we'll figure out where we need to send the injectors, but we're going to send the injectors back. We're going to make sure the rails are clean. We're going to drain the tank. We're going to clean the tank. Make sure, I mean, I run pump E85. Just make sure there's no gunk or nothing in there. And really just be good front to back. The engine on this thing's stout. We're going to check plugs, make sure we didn't burn anything up. I don't think we did. I like to say we did. I don't think we did, but you never know. That last pop on here was violent, and that's what it'd be doing at the track. So it's a combination of a bunch of things. Get a little bit more data. This boost controller I have, you can go to like to the 10th, I guess, with like the decimal. Like, I don't know, what is it, like I can go to like 10.2 pounds of dome pressure. It's the 10th, so I'm right. Okay, school, important, stay in it. But with the way the wastegates are less efficient and the turbo kit wants to make more boost, we're gonna have to, I'm gonna really have to be on top of my game with the boost controller, making sure I don't over boost it and max out this map sensor, because once this map sensor maxes out, it goes blind. It doesn't know what fuel to feed it. So alright guys, so I want to thank you for pushing me to get the cow back, because just having that car up and running, even on the dyno, it's an absolute blast. So I have a strategy of what we need to do. Once we get the fuel system figured out, we're going to put it back on the dyno. Probably going to have to pull some fuel out of it. And if that's the case, we'll be ready to go to the track. This big issue presented itself when the car was having these cutting out issues. Generally, if it cuts out, it's on a factory tank, and that's just from fuel slosh. Just rocking back and forth. Sending unit, gulp some air, send some air up. Not good. Been filling the car up, it's been popping, and it's been doing this since Streetcar Takeover Bradenton, when we took this car in the Bad Apple. So it's been a long time overdue. A lot of work done to this car. We've been improving it from the rear end to the shocks. It's got some, hopefully some good strong axles in there, fingers crossed, because I don't like doing the whole swapping out axles dance. But the cow is coming back. People are going to get the gap. First on my list, the first one is my main man Charles. He's going to get the gap just like the good old days, and there ain't nothing he can do about it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for pushing me to get the cow. Sometimes I need a little kick in the ass to get things back up and running. So the cow is going to be back. We're making more power than ever. I'm going to turn it harder than ever. We're going to push it harder than ever. We're going to go faster than ever. And we're going to gap people larger than ever. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like always, comment, like, subscribe. Just a quick little Sunday video here to give you guys an update. And we'll see you guys first thing Monday. We got a big update on the Ranger. It is back and we are turning that thing up too.
Don't be showing the grudge car.
Grudge car? You mean race car?
Street car. Street style.
Street style. Street car. Race car.
No, street car.
Look at that shirt too.
He just doesn't know how to do a mediocre burnout.